Hey everybody, in our last lesson on tritones and how they resolved, we began with a 5-7 chord, in this case G7th. We extracted the 3rd and the 7th from the chord, which was our tritone, in this case B and F. And then we resolved that BF to the root and the 3rd of the C chord, which is the 1 chord. We're in the key of C in this case. So we begin with a G7th, isolate the 3rd and the 7th of the 7th chord, and then we resolved it inward. Today we're going a step further. We'll begin with the 7th chord again, then we'll isolate the tritone, then we're going to invert the tritone and see what happens when we try to resolve it to the 1 chord. So in the previous lesson, we started with the 7th chord, let's say C7th. And then we extracted from that 7th chord the 3rd and the 7th, the E and the B flat. And I'm just going to label them. That's the 3rd, that's the 7th. And then we resolved that tritone up to the F and the A of the F chord. So tritone, in effect, resolved inward by half steps to the root and the 3rd of F. So here we have C7th. Here we have the tritone, which happens to be a diminished 5th. And then it resolves into the root and the 3rd of F major. And technically, we have the 5-7 chord resolving to the root and the 3rd of the 1 chord. So now we're going to take it a step further. So let's rewrite the C7th chord, C, E, G, B flat. Extract the tritone, E, B flat, which is a diminished 5th. And now we're going to invert the diminished 5ths so that it becomes an augmented 4th. We're going to leave the B flat where it is and bring the E up an octave. So now we have B flat to E, an augmented 4th. Now hang in there, because if we go back to here, we saw that a diminished 5th, in this tritone, E to B flat, resolved inward to a major 3rd. So we should be able to anticipate when we begin with an augmented 4th, which is an inversion of this diminished 5th, that it will probably resolve to the inversion of the major 3rd, which is a minor 6th. Another way of looking at it, and that's pretty complicated and mind-blowing if this is the first time you're hearing it. Another way of looking at it is if you look over here, the 3rd of the tritone resolves up to the root. The 7th of the tritone resolves down to the 3rd. So we can anticipate that they'll do exactly the same thing, but now they're going in different directions from this interval of an augmented 4th. So here, the B flat resolved down to an A, so this B flat will resolve down to an A, and here the E resolved up to an F, but we brought that E up an octave. So this E is now going to resolve up and to an F. So what we have is the inversion of this interval, which is that resolving to the inversion of this interval, the F to the A, which is now an A and an F. So if we go back and analyze this begin with the C7th chord, that's the 5-7 chord. We extracted the tritone, we inverted the tritone, and that brought us to the third and the root of the 1 chord. So C7th brings us to F major. So instead of having this inward resolution of the tritone to a major third, we now have an outward resolution of the inversion of the tritone to a minor sixth. And I'm sure you've heard something like this in pieces before. At the end of a piece, let's try writing these out in all the keys. So what I'm going to do, we'll begin with the 7th chord, and we'll write in the original tritone we'll extract. So in this case, it's a B and an F. Ledger line, B, F. That's a diminished fifth. Now we're going to invert that to FB, the augmented fourth. There it is. Let's make these half notes And then we're going to take this newly inverted interval, right, the F and the B, and resolve it out. Remember, the B is the third of the G7th chord, so that resolves to the root of the 1 chord. The F is the 7th of the G7th chord, that resolves to the third of C major. And there you have it. All right, let's see what it sounds like. Here's G7th. Here's the extracted tritone. Here's the inversion of that tritone. And here's that inverted tritone now, resolving out. Okay, onward to G sharp 7th. So we have the B sharp and the F sharp as our extracted tritone, and then we're going to invert that. So we have an F sharp now under the B sharp. And let's make half notes. And now the newly inverted tritone. Resolves outward by half steps. So a B sharp goes up to a C sharp. The F sharp comes down to an E sharp. All right, for A flat 7th, we'll remove the C and the G flat. C and the G flat. Then we invert that interval so that we have the G flat under the C, bringing the C up an octave. Put in our stems to make them half notes. And now the G flat to C resolves outward by half steps. C goes up to a D flat. G flat comes down to an F. So here we had G sharp 7th tritone resolving to C sharp. Here we have the A flat 7th tritone resolving to D flat. In all cases, we have a 5-to-1 relationship, right? G 7th is 5 of C. G sharp 7th is 5 of C sharp. A flat 7th being 5 of D flat major. All right, let's take a look at A 7th. We extract the C sharp and the G. That's the 3rd and the 7th. Now we bring the C sharp up an octave above the G. We have diminished 5th becoming an augmented 4th. So this is our inverted tritone. Now we resolve the inverted tritone by raising the C sharp a half step to a D, and by bringing the G down a half step to the F sharp of the D major triad. So once again, we have a 5 going to 7, 5, 7 going to 1 relationship. All right, let's look at B flat 7th. We extract a D and an A flat, 3rd and the 7th. The A flat stays, the D goes up an octave, the interval becomes an augmented 4th. Let's rewrite A flat D and resolve it. So this is now the B flat 7th tritone. And we can expect that that's going to resolve to an E flat, because B flat is the 5th note of the E flat scale. So D goes up a half step to E flat. Yeah, and there. And the A flat comes down a half step to G. And there are our lines going out in resolution. And again, we have the tritone implies a 5-7 chord, and it resolves to 1. Okay, B 7th. Let's take out the tritone. D sharp A. We'll invert that, keep the A on the bottom, bring the D sharp up an octave. And let's rewrite it. A, D sharp is our inverted tritone. And that's coming from a B 7th chord, so we can expect that this is going to resolve down 5 to an E major. So the D sharp comes up a half step to an E. The A comes down a half step to the G sharp, which is the 3rd of E major. And C 7th, this is a replay of the above, but there's no harm in doing it again. We extract the E and the B flat, invert that, so the B flat stays, the E comes up an octave. Okay, that's our inverted tritone. Let's rewrite that again. B flat and E. That's our C 7th tritone inverted, and we expect it's going to go to an F tonality. So the E comes up a half step to an F, B flat comes down half step to an A. And there you have your 5-7 to 1 relationship. All right, taking C sharp 7th, we remove the 3rd, which is E sharp, and the 7th, which is just B. Let's invert it. The B stays. The E sharp comes up an octave. Okay, there's our inverted interval. Oh, I forgot to put in stems on all these half notes. Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. Okay, let's rewrite this inverted tritone. So this is our C sharp 7th tritone, yeah? So the E sharp goes up a half step to F sharp. B comes down a half step to A sharp, bringing us to the root and the third of F sharp major, respectively. All right, D flat 7th. Let's extract the tritone, F and C flat. Now let's invert it. We have C flat, F is the inverted tritone. And let's rewrite that. C flat, F. Okay, since it's the D flat 7th tritone, it's going to resolve to G flat, or the elements of G flat. C flat comes down to a B flat. The F goes up a half step to a G flat. Okay, D 7th next. Let's pull out the tritone, F sharp and C. Let's invert it. The C stays. The F comes up an octave to F. The F sharp comes up an octave. There's our inverted tritone. Okay, once again, the 3rd and the 7th inverts to the 7th and the 3rd. And let's rewrite that inverted tritone. And since this is coming from a D7th, which is functioning as a 5 chord, we can expect it's going to resolve to a G, which is 1. So the F sharp goes up a half step to a G. The C comes down a half step to a B. Okay, E flat 7th. Let's pull out the tritone. In this case, it's G, D flat. Let's invert. D flat stays. And the diminished 5th becomes an augmented 4th. There you go. Let's rewrite it. D flat, G comes out of an E flat 7th chord, which is functioning as a 5 chord. Okay. The G, which is the 3rd, resolves up a half step to an A flat. The D flat, which is the 7th of the E flat 7th chord, resolves down a half step to the 3rd of A flat, which is a C. All right, let's look at E 7th. Let's pull out the tritone, G sharp D. And let's invert it. D stays, G sharp comes up. Again, we have the inversion factor making a diminished fifth and augmented fourth. All right, let's rewrite the inverted tritone. That's coming out of an E7th chord, which functions as a 5. And the G sharp, which is the third of E7th, is going to resolve up a half step to an A. The D of the E7th chord is going to resolve down a half step to the third of A, which is C sharp. All right, we're on to F7th. Let's extract the A, which is the third, and the E flat, which is the 7th. That's our tritone for F7th. And now we're going to invert it to E flat, and we're going to bring the A up to the first ledger line. E flat A. All right, then rewrite E flat A. Remember, in F7th, that's the 7th, and that's the third now up here. Okie doke. And now we're going to resolve this F7th tritone. Since it's functioning as 5, it's going to go to 1, which is a B flat. So the A comes up to B flat, sitting on the first ledger line. The E flat comes down to D. Two more to go. F sharp 7th, let's extract the tritone. We have A sharp and E. So the third is A sharp, the 7th is E. Let's flip it over or invert it. E stays, A sharp comes up to the first ledger line. Okay, let's rewrite that. E, A sharp. That is our F sharp 7th tritone inverted. And that's going to map or pull to the 1 chord, which is B. All right, F7th, B. So A sharp goes up a half step to a B, which sits on the first ledger line. The E comes down to a D sharp. So we have the third of F sharp 7th going up to the root of B, the 7th of F sharp 7th coming down to the third of B, D sharp. And lastly, we have G flat 7th. We're going to pull out or extract the tritone, so we have B flat, which is the third, and F flat, which is the 7th. Okay, gets really confusing now when you start looking at all these flats and you go, geez, how can I remember what the third and the 7th of G flat 7th? Well, an easy way is to look at G 7th. Third and the 7th is B and F, so if it's G flat 7th, it's just B flat and F flat. Okay, so that's one way of simplifying it. Okay, so now we're going to invert this tritone. So F flat stays, the B flat comes up now and sits on the first ledger line. There you go. All right, so this is the G flat 7th tritone. Let's rewrite it. F flat to B flat. Okay. So we can anticipate that this G flat 7th tritone will resolve to C flat. Well, how do I know that? Now, I don't think I've ever played a piece in C flat major, so this is almost as foreign to me as it is to you. So you look at this and it's just scary, you know, all these flats, and never seen this before. I've never really dealt with this key before in practical terms. So take a look up here. F to B goes to E and C. So F flat to B flat is going to go to E flat and C flat. It's just a step down. This is a step down from that, half step down. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. All right, so the B flat here is going to go up to, watch this now, 2 ledger lines, C flat. I know it's kind of sloppy. It looks like it's going down, but it's actually going up. B flat's going up to a C flat. The F flat is coming down to an E flat. Okay. So here's your G flat 7th. That's 5. Going to C flat, which is 1. All right, so that's it for today, and next lesson I'll show you how to play these and resolve them and give you the fingerings, just like we did with when we did the original inversion of the tritone. All right, so we'll see you next time. Okay, take care.